Well, since I have a little bit of time and an opportunity to do so, thought I would go ahead and come back with yet another podcast to give you an update on what's been going on in the sports world. So for those of you just tuning in, or if this is your first time, welcome. For those of you who are returning, welcome back. We're doing a little bit of an overview of all of the sports events that have occurred over the past week. And of course, the first thing that I will go into that I'm still in my feelings about, but not too upset about now, involves the infamous Cam Newton meltdown. To put it mildly, or put it in a very legitimate manner, he had one job. And his job, or his objective, was to go out and try to have a good Super Bowl performance. But for some reason, I think he took the game lightly, and it caused the end result to be what it was. Sorry, doing a little promo. Sorry, my bad. But the legitimate truth is, you really and honestly, I think I'm going to say this for everybody. I don't think anybody expected what we saw, but we saw it. And then to make matters worse, it was just a matter of him coming through in the clutch. The only way that I can describe the Super Bowl, because a lot of people have talked to me about it, and one of my thoughts is I am a Carolina fan. And the only thing that I can think of, the most realistic assessment I can give, is it was history repeating itself, because basically what he did was what Peyton Manning did 2 years ago. Except with Peyton's case, it was a much worse situation, only because they literally, no one expected Seattle to do what they did, but they did it, and here we are. I truly was not impressed with the game, but it was what it was, and it was one of those, hey, it happened, be a fan, and don't get too worked up, or don't get too caught up in your feelings. And I try my best not to, but of course, as a fan, that is kind of difficult to do. So there's that moment, and the All-Star festivities. So I'm going to break the All-Star section down into two parts, because the game itself was yesterday, and the pre-game activities, as we'll call it, were on Saturday. There was a little bit on Friday. Friday, there really wasn't much. I mean, the celebrity game seemed like it was pretty good. Kevin Hart went from coach to player. Not surprised by that for some reason. And they did the rookie, or I guess you can call it the Rising Stars Challenge now, since they no longer do rookies against sophomores. It wasn't, that game, from what I could tell, didn't really sound like it had much of a pizzazz to it, but I mean, what do you expect? There were a lot of guys who have been hurt or injured and haven't been able to play, so we didn't get to see them play, like Dante Exum, along with I can't think of the guy's name. He's a Joel Embiid. I almost literally lost that moment, but thankfully my brain came back. So yeah, those two didn't play, but nonetheless, it sounded like it was a pretty good game. The dunk contest, I'm going to say this because I think we have to give credit where it's due. The dunk contest never left. It just came down to who was competing in the dunk contest. For instance, the year that, like, for perfect example, last year, Zach LaVine pretty much ran away with it. But if you really think about it and you go back and look at last year's dunk contest, who else participated? Don't worry, I'll wait. I really want to see if anybody remembers who else was in that dunk contest, because I honestly don't. But this year it was Zach LaVine and Aaron Gordon. And to give you a bit of a side note, because I've talked about this before in my sports group, what Aaron Gordon did on Saturday, I've seen probably before he even came into the NBA, or before he even went to college. So I'm not like overwhelmed or surprised by what I saw. I'm glad he came out and had a good performance. It was tough that he was not able to get the attention of the judges because they gave him some tough scores, but that's the way it goes when it comes to being in a dunk contest always. So I mean, I'm not upset, but I feel like he kind of got snubbed a little bit in that, but it is what it is. Funny side note, and I mentioned him in the celebrity game, but during the Saturday festivities, they did a 3-point shootout between Draymond Green and Kevin Hart, and a lot of people don't find Kevin Hart funny. Personal preference, call it what you want. But I will admit, it wasn't about him humor-wise. It was about him literally seeing how short he was and how he had to take his little 2-step shot on each jumper. Because it was one of those, you could tell he plays basketball, but he doesn't play basketball. Because it was weird, but he played, he participated. It turned out good, and it was what it was. But all in all, it went like I expected, and I can't complain about that at all. The 3-point shootout was great. You had the Splash Brothers going against each other in the finals, which only made sense since Steph Curry's been having a pretty solid season this year, and you've also had Klay Thompson pretty much breaking out of his shell and playing good basketball as we've noticed. So all it comes down to now is just them finishing off the season. I'm gonna get into the All-Star game in a moment, because if these two can play like they did in the All-Star game during the regular season, you might Golden State might have some problems, but seeing is believing is with anything. So there's that. As we all know, with the NBA season reaching the point that it is now, since the All-Star game has come and gone, we are officially at the trade section of the season. For some odd reason, and I'm going to say it now, Rudy Gay will get traded. Don't ask me why I'm laughing at that, because I feel bad. Like, every year he gets traded, and it ends up being the weirdest trades that happen. Like, he was in Memphis majority of his career. He went to Toronto. He's been in Sacramento playing, but I don't feel like he's going to be there. There's been talk about DeMarcus Cousins getting traded. I don't see that. Dwight Howard, which is actually my next topic, Dwight Howard has to go. If Houston is smart, they'll take the money, the paid pinch or whatever the case may be, and just let him go. It only makes sense. He's really been more of a and I don't want to use this term, but it's literally how I feel about him. He's been a chronic heart failure than a beneficial asset to the Houston Rockets. He's been playing very mediocre ball. Even worse, for you to be as dominant of a big man as you are, he's missed a lot of the season, which I'll give him that. But as a spinoff, he wasn't even in the conversation of making it to the All-Star game this year. So that for me was kind of like, this relationship with Dwight Howard was great, but it's time to let it go. Guard separate ways and let it be what it's going to be, and however it rolls is how it rolls. So I guess we'll see what happens. He may end up staying this year, and they might just let him go during the off season. I just have a feeling he's not going to be there the whole way through. Of course, the talk comes up again about our infamous good old buddy Carmelo Anthony being traded. If he goes anywhere, it's only going to be for marketing purposes, because let's face it and let's really look at it. He's not going to win a championship in the league anytime soon. The only way that I see it happening, and it's slim to none of this even occurring, is if Carmelo joins Cleveland. The thing is, if he joins Cleveland would have to give up about 3 or 4 players and draft picks to pull it off. But if it's any consolation, that would give the Knicks some picks since they haven't picked anybody beyond Porzingis in quite a while. So let that one work in mind as well. I don't know what's going to, like I said, I never really call trades too well because it's always up in the air. It can be very exciting or very bland. You honestly never can tell. So there's that. And my final topic is the All-Star game itself. They were 4 points shy of, I'm sorry. Spoiler alert, if you have not seen the game already, do not listen to what I'm about to share. The Western Conference All-Stars were 4 points shy of scoring 200 points in the game. Now, you know what's interesting as a side note that the mere fact that the Toronto scoreboard can only go to 190 and they pretty much had to improv the score at the facility, even though they have a digital, score display on our screen. It went fine, and they scored it. They got their score. They had 196, and what was amazing about it was that Paul George was 1 point shy of breaking the record tying the record of Wilt Chamberlain. And the fact that that Greg Popovich literally put Draymond Green in just to play defense on him so he wouldn't break the record says a lot. Also wanted to talk about this because it was an addition or a continuation of our buddy Kobe Bryant, Black Mamba, his farewell tour. I'm not sure if they play another game in Toronto, but I do know that they did go ahead and, give a little bit of a festive send-off for him in Toronto during this All-Star game, which I think only made sense. And he had 10 points. I mean, I wasn't looking for him to do a lot in the game anyway. He just was out there because he was happy to be playing. I mean, it was his 18th All-Star game. Come on, 18 All-Star games. And you played 20 seasons, that's not bad. So he played in that game. Russell Westbrook won the MVP. He is the first to win back-to-backs since Bob Pettit, if I'm not mistaken. And that for me puts it into perspective as to how dominant of a game he had, because he came in, it was almost like he played with a major chip on his shoulder like he did last season, but the chip was a little bit different this year. And this kind of goes into what I said earlier. So far, it's a three-team race in the Western Conference between the Spurs, the Warriors, and the Thunder. Beyond them, I really don't see anybody else in the West that's really going to give anybody any problems. In the East, Indiana and Miami. That's about it. And that's taking nothing away from Toronto. I just know for a fact that Toronto's not playoff oriented for some reason. And I feel bad saying it that way, but it's also the truth. So it's kind of almost like you got to call it for what it's worth. So we'll just see how it all goes and let it all pan itself out. But the scoring and the gameplay of the All-Star game this year actually was not that bad. It was tough seeing a few of the failed plays, especially Kobe missing the sky hook, in reference or in respect to Kareem. But still, nonetheless, it was just good seeing him playing and actually playing in an All-Star game. Kawhi Leonard played, bless his heart, he got comfortable. At first, he looked like he was timid and not sure where to fit in because he was actually playing it like it was a serious game. And then after he kind of saw it was like, okay, I'm going to have a little bit of fun with this. He'll make another All-Star game again. I can see that. I just think he didn't expect or really know what he was signing up for when playing. But in hindsight, he actually got into a more comfortable flow of the game as time went along. So that's where I'm at now with those topics. And that's kind of an overview of everything that I wanted to kind of discuss or get into. with this week in sports. I hope everyone has been enjoying the posts, and if you have been listening and you do like what you're hearing, by all means, definitely share. And until next time, this is BT signing out. Y'all have a good weekend. If you did not celebrate properly, happy Valentine's Day to those in tune, and most of all, happy President's Day. If you acknowledge or celebrate such, personal preference, I know, but just wanted to get that in there. And as always, it's BT signing out. Peace.